You want to create a database for your own purpose, which in the end should look something like this, where you can just insert your data. And then this whole set of tutorials which I'm creating now is perfect for you.
For that, you have to think of what tables you want. In an example with a school, you want to model a school, it would be a pupil, a teacher, a subject, and you obviously want to model which teacher has which subject and which pupil takes which subject or class. Then you also might have a class and a classroom. And for example, in the classroom, you want to save which class belongs to this classroom. So to make this simpler, we say that one class can only have one classroom and one classroom can only be used by one class. So you don't have to change anything around in this case. As an option for that, you could make an extra relationship and there you could insert a date and time, for example. Then you could set the date and time as a primary key or as a key, and then you'll be good to go. But in this case, we will start off with that. So a pupil obviously needs an ID, obviously needs a name and a surname. I hope you can read this mess. And maybe an age, and the same goes with the teacher. But to eliminate any similarities, the pupil has the ID. We will make the teacher's ID TID. So there are possibilities to change this afterwards, but we don't want to change it afterwards, so we will just do it now. Name and surname. And I want to identify the pupil by his ID. Same goes with the teacher. The subject has a name and a teacher. And the class just has the pupil ID, which obviously is the primary key. And yeah, the classroom only has a class. So what are keys? Keys are attributes that identify one set of data, a so-called instance. If we take as an example, you have the pupil with an ID, with a name, the surname and the age, and you choose as the ID, he has the ID 1. The name is Peter, surname, let's make it short with P. And he's 18 years old. So the ID is not allowed to be used for another pupil. So if we have another pupil, for example, James A. he has to have another ID, for example, 2. And so with just the ID, you can identify the pupil, so the pupil's name, his surname, and the age. So when you have a rough idea how your database should look like in the end, you can start with an entity relationship diagram.
There are many different possibilities out there to create ER diagrams, but I will choose draw.io, which you can just access through your browser or download the app for that. I will choose the app version, so just create a new diagram. As you can see here, there are already all kinds of charts as templates, and we will just choose the entity relationship diagram and click create. So then you get this preset, which we are going to change now as we want it. So customer, order and shipment are single entity types. This gives up is a relationship type and obviously shows the relationship between customer and order. So a customer gives up an order or orders an order, whatever you want to call it. Inside here you see the attributes of the single entity types. Relationship types also can have attributes. So it depends what way to model things you choose. There's, for example, this way, where you just set the attributes under the entity type, or you, for example, choose that way. Generally speaking, there are many different ways of how a scheme like that should look like. You can choose whatever you feel best with. As I already said, relationship types can also have attributes. In this case, this would be an order number. What you also have to know and declare at this point is how many orders one customer can give up and how many orders can be given up by customers. In this case, this would be an M to N relationship. So one customer can give up as many orders as he wants, and an order can be given up by as many customers. If that makes sense or not depends on your example. We already created a simple example, which we are going to model now. So instead of customer, we take our pupil. Instead of our order, we choose subject. So now we can say a pupil has a subject. In this case, we don't need an attribute for the has relationship type. Our pupil also has a name, but we need his ID, we need his surname, and we need his age. In this case, the ID is the primary key or the key because we said that you could identify a pupil by his ID. That's why we underline it. Our subject had a name and a teacher, but it would be also good to add an ID for the subject as well, which we are going to name SID for subject ID. Then we also have the name and the teacher. Now we need the teacher itself. The teacher had the TID for teacher ID and also a name and a surname. We will create a relationship type which says that a teacher teaches a subject. So now we have to say that a subject can only be taught by one teacher. In reality, this is not the case for every subject, to be clear, but in our example, we will pretend like it would be. There are also many different possibilities to model that, but in our case, we will just write the cardinality onto each side. So one teacher teaches n subjects, and one subject can only be taught by one teacher. Here we would have to do the same, which is an m to n cardinality. So now we also need a class and a classroom. So now we have the classroom with the room ID and the class with the class ID. Now we need some more relationship types. So one pupil belongs to one class and m pupils can be in one class. And here one class uses one classroom. So we have a one-to-one cardinality. And this already is our entity relationship diagram for the example we set up earlier. If you remember the attributes I added to class and classroom, you remember that I added PID to class, which is the pupil ID, and to classroom I added the ID class. But we don't need that now. And for now you can just forget about that. For now we only need the class ID and the room ID. So now you can click File, Export as, PNG, Transparent Background, and just export the diagram wherever you want it to be. When done exporting, it looks like that. Because it has no background and I have enabled dark mode on my computer, it's all black or dark brown. So that's it for this video. If you want to learn more about databases and how to create them from scratch, like, subscribe and activate the bell so that you don't miss any future video. Sorry again for the bad audio in the biggest part of the video. Won't happen again. So I'm looking forward to see you in my next database video.